Numerosas han sido las modificaciones.
The UCI has introduced several changes with respect to equipment over the past few years.
Es por ello que desde el Comité
For this reason, the Spanish Cycling Federation Referees Committee felt it appropriate to produce a video which in a practical way demonstrated the main characteristics and dimensions to which competition bikes must adhere.
Este vídeo de uso interno para la formación de comisarios.
This video, used internally in the training of Spanish commissaires, complements the clarification guide of the UCI Technical Regulations, which is available from the website.
RFEC dentro del apartado Comité Técnico de Árbitros, Guías de Formación.
This document does not replace Article 1.3.001 to 1.3.034 of the UCI Regulations, but rather complements them and illustrates the technical rules defined therein. The objective of this document is to provide a definitive interpretation in order to facilitate understanding and application of the regulations by international commissaires, teams and manufacturers. Without further ado, let's move on to the explanation, which we hope will be useful for everyone concerned.
In
this video, we are going to focus on the checking of a bike equipment for road events, both road races and time trials. In the first part of the video, we will quickly review the main dimensions with which a competition bike must comply, according to those defined in the UCI regulations, so that afterwards we can take a detailed look at how we carry out the bike check before a time trial event. The rider shall normally assume a sitting position on the bike, which requires just 3 points of support: the saddle, the handlebars and the pedals. The bike consists of handlebars, which allow it to be ridden and manoeuvred in any circumstances and in complete safety, and drive is only achieved via the legs, through a movement which must be circular around the bottom bracket axle. A bike must not measure more than 185 centimeters in length from the front edge of the front wheel to the rear edge of the rear wheel. A bike cannot measure more than 50 centimeters in width. The two wheels must be of equal diameter and may vary in diameter between a minimum of 55 centimeters and a maximum of 70 centimeters, including the tire. The distance between the bottom bracket spindle and the rear wheel spindle must be between 35 and 50 centimeters. And the distance between the bottom bracket spindle and the front wheel spindle must be between 54 and 65 centimeters. The distance between the bottom bracket spindle and the ground must be between 24 and 30 centimeters. Regarding forks, the distance between the external extremities of the front forks cannot exceed 11.5 centimeters, and the distance between the internal extremities of the rear triangle cannot exceed 14.5 centimeters. The saddle must measure between 24 and 30 centimeters with a permissible tolerance of 5 millimeters either way, and the plane passing through the highest point of the front and the rear of the saddle must be at an angle of no more than 9 degrees. The peak of the saddle must be at least 5 centimeters behind the vertical plane through the bottom bracket spindle. The peak of the saddle may be moved forward as far as the vertical plane which passes through the bottom bracket spindle for morphological reasons, that is to say due to the size and limbs of the rider. The handlebars must be positioned in an area defined as follows: above by the horizontal plane through the point of support of the saddle, below by the horizontal plane 10 centimeters below the highest point of the two wheels, at the rear by the axis of the steerer tube, and at the front by the vertical plane through the front wheel spindle, with a tolerance of 5 centimeters. Regarding the weight of the bike, the authorized minimum for a competition bike is 6.8 kilograms. The frame must take the form of a triangular shape, composed of tubular elements which may be round, oval or flattened. The tubes may be slightly curved, but a straight line must be able to be drawn within each element along its length. Since 2011, the UCI has, alongside bike manufacturers, moved towards standardization of frames and forks built for competition, which guarantees that they comply with all the required regulations. In order to verify this standardization, the manufacturer attaches a tag to the bike. This standardisation began in 2011. In some competitions, we may encounter bikes manufactured prior to this date which do not meet this standardisation. Now we're going to take a practical look at how we conduct the checks on a bike before a time trial event. The main objective of the pre-time trial check are to ensure that the bike conforms to the regulations and to guarantee that the rider's racing position will be similarly valid. The rider's racing position in the time trial maintains the same 3 points of contact: saddle, pedals and handlebars, bearing in mind that the forearms must be in a horizontal position. In making this video, we are going to rely on a piece of equipment which we often call by its French name, the gabourey. Here we have a gabourey manufactured and standardized by the UCI. The first thing we must do is verify that the gabourey is mounted correctly. For this, we use a spirit level to check that it is level, and with the help of a set square we can verify the angles. We also have to verify the distance between the inside of the two tubes, which should be 75 centimeters. Once we have checked the gabourey, we can move on to checking the bike. First, we position the bike on the gabourey, remembering that we must center it on the piece in order to mark the position of the bottom bracket spindle. We begin by checking the saddle position, which, as we said previously, must be 5 centimeters behind the vertical plane through the bottom bracket spindle. Here, using this piece, we can verify that the positioning is correct and that it is indeed 5 centimeters behind the vertical plane through the bottom bracket spindle. We also saw previously that a rider may, for morphological reasons, normally applied to riders of small stature, move the saddle forward across these 5 centimeters like this, which is still valid position for a rider who requires it for those reasons. However, under no circumstances may the peak of the saddle be in front of the vertical plane through the bottom bracket spindle, as this would be an irregular position and we would require the rider to pull the peak of the saddle backwards. Next, using the spirit level, we check the saddle incline. We cannot exceed 9 degrees from the horizontal, and using a tape measure we check that the saddle complies with the regulation measurements which require its length to be between 24 and 30 centimeters, with a maximum tolerance of 5 millimeters. Next we check the position of the handlebars. The use of handlebar extensions is permitted on time trial bikes as long as they do not exceed more than 75 centimeters beyond the vertical plane through the bottom bracket spindle, including all accessories. Here we verify the 75 centimeters using this piece and check that the end of the handlebar extensions, including all accessories, is indeed within the 75 centimeters from the vertical plane through the bottom bracket spindle. The handlebar extensions may be moved forward as far as 80 centimeters for morphological reasons, normally due to the size and limb length of the rider, as is in this case, and always measuring to the end of the handlebar extensions, including all accessories. Riders who are 190 centimeters or taller may move the handlebar extensions as far forward as 85 centimeters. In summary, the standard position of the handlebar extensions is 75 centimeters from the vertical plane through the bottom bracket spindle. Riders may, for morphological reasons, move this position forward to between 75 and 80 centimeters. And riders who are 190 centimeters or taller may move the end of the handlebar extensions forward to between 80 and 85 centimeters. An important point to note is that a rider who, for morphological reasons, moves the point of the saddle forward with respect to the 5 centimeters from the bottom bracket spindle may, under no circumstances, move the handlebar extensions forward with respect to the 75 centimeters from the bottom bracket spindle. Conversely, A rider who, for morphological reasons, moves the handlebar extensions beyond the distance of 75 centimetres from the bottom bracket spindle may not move the saddle forward with respect to the 5 centimetres from the bottom bracket spindle. In summary, the rider may only benefit from one of the two exemptions, either moving the point of the saddle forward or moving the handlebar extensions forward. The handlebar extensions must have a maximum inclination of 10 centimetres upwards or downwards, including accessories. To undertake this check, in this instance, we use this piece and rest it on the elbow supports. Here we check the 10 centimetres height upwards, as I said, including all accessories. And here we check the 10 centimetres distance downwards. We must also conduct a visual check of the frame and all parts of the bike. In this case, we can verify that the frame is standardised by the UCI. We check that there are no modifications to the manufactured equipment, since no modifications to the manufactured equipment are permitted in competition. We check that there are no types of protective screens or additional pieces with the aim of improving the bike's aerodynamics. And we can also check that there is no fairing, that is to say, fixed parts which enclose moving parts with the aim of improving aerodynamics, and which tend to appear, for example, in the rear wheel, which occasionally connects to the seat tube. For this test, we must be able to place a credit card between the rear wheel and the seat tube. As regards water bottles, they may only be located on the down tubes, on the inside of the frames. They may not be integrated in the frame. There must be space between the bottle and the tube to which it is attached. They also may not be attached to both tubes at the same time, as this would be a method of improving aerodynamics. They may be round or flattened, but must still comply with the regulatory measurements of 10 centimetres maximum and 4 centimetres minimum for the cross section. Finally, it should be added that since the 1st of January 2016, it has been permitted to install cameras or other types of devices onto racing bikes for the purposes of data collection, with a number of conditions. The attachment system must be designed for use on bicycles and pose no risk. The attachment system cannot be removed during the race, and the rider cannot have direct access to the images or data from these devices. This is the end of the explanations. Remember that the UCI regulations assert the primacy of man over machine, such that respect for all parties involved guarantees sporting fairness and safety during competition. In the same way, each discipline has its own technical characteristics, and there may be variants within each one depending on the type of event. Finally, we would like to repeat that this referee committee and the regulations committee of the Spanish Cycling Federation are available for you to obtain any further information on the technical regulations.